Let's go Dolphins! Something big is quietly happening at the Miami Dolphins facilities right now, and most people on the outside haven't noticed yet. While critics are already dismissing the team, there are movements, decisions, and changes being made behind the scenes that could completely alter expectations for this season. And what I'm about to tell you might surprise even the most loyal fans. But before I reveal everything, like this post right now if you truly believe in the Dolphins, especially if you're one of the fans who never gave up on this team. And I want to see who's really optimistic about what's to come. Leave a comment right now saying, I believe in this team, because what's being built in Miami could be bigger than anyone imagines. Because what I'm about to break down might get people talking. Now let's get straight into it. The Dolphins are entering the structured phases of the NFL offseason program, and this isn't just about players showing up and running drills. This is where the foundation of the entire season begins. According to the schedule, Phase 1 kicks off with meetings, strength conditioning, and rehabilitation. No on-field competition yet, just mental preparation and physical rebuilding. It may sound basic, but this is exactly where a new culture starts to take shape, especially under a new head coach like Jeff Hafley. And here's where things start to get interesting. Hafley is stepping into a situation where the outside world already doubts this team. There are people saying Miami could be one of the worst teams in the league this season, that they might be picking at the very top of the draft again. That narrative is loud, and it's dangerous, because inside that locker room, Hafley has to flip that mindset immediately. His first speech, his first impression this week, it has to hit hard. It has to resonate. From everything we're hearing, Hafley is that type of leader. Players respect him. They respond to him, and that matters more than any playbook at this stage. Because if this team buys in early, even if they lack top-tier talent, they can still become a tough, physical opponent week after week. That's the identity he's trying to build. But let's talk about the biggest storyline right now, Malik Willis. This is not a small move. This is not a temporary fix. The Dolphins brought him in to be the guy. General Manager John Eric Sullivan made that crystal clear, calling Willis an ascending player with elite physical tools and leadership qualities. And when both the front office and coaching staff are publicly backing a quarterback like that, it sends a message to the entire locker room. Now the question is, will the team truly rally behind him? Because let's be honest, belief in your quarterback changes everything. If players trust Willis, if they buy into his leadership, this team could outperform expectations. He's athletic, he's dynamic, and he brings a different dimension to the offense. But leadership isn't just about talent. It's about presence, communication, and consistency. And this offseason program is where that starts. At the same time, there's a massive shift happening on both sides of the ball. Defensively, Hafley is not just overseeing things, he's calling the shots. He wants a unit that is physical, aggressive, and unpredictable. A base 4-3 system, but with the flexibility to adjust into multiple looks depending on the situation. That means versatility is going to be critical. Players will need to adapt quickly, learn new roles, and execute without hesitation. And then there's the offense. Bobby Slowik is now in full control. This is his system, his vision, his responsibility. With Hafley focusing on defense, Slowik essentially becomes the architect of everything we'll see offensively. Expect a scheme built around play action, movement, and maximizing Malik Willis's athletic ability. This could look very different from what Dolphins fans have seen in recent years. Because here's where things start to get even more intriguing, and honestly, a little bit controversial inside the building. We talked about Malik Willis needing to establish himself as QB1, but what people aren't fully discussing yet is how much pressure is already on him before a single snap is played. This isn't a slow development situation. The front office didn't bring him in just to see what happens. They committed to him, they are building around him, and that means the expectations come fast. And inside that locker room, players are watching everything, how he speaks, how he trains, how he commands the huddle. If he hesitates even a little, that confidence we talked about earlier can start to crack. At the same time, Jeff Hafley is trying to install a completely new defensive mindset, and that's not something that happens overnight. We're talking about new terminology, new positioning, new responsibilities, all being introduced without full contact practices at this stage. That means players have to mentally lock in more than ever. Mistakes are going to happen, confusion will show up, and this is where coaching becomes everything. And let me tell you something that should catch your attention. Hafley doesn't just want a defense that reacts. He wants a defense that dictates. A unit that confuses opponents, disguises pressure, and plays with intensity on every single snap. We're talking about simulated pressures, shifting alignments, and players being used in multiple roles to keep offenses guessing. That kind of system can be dangerous, but only if players fully understand it. Now flip to the offensive side again, because Bobby Slowik's role might be even more critical than people realize. With Hafley focusing heavily on defense, Slowik essentially becomes the leader of the offense in every sense. This is his opportunity to prove that what happened in Houston wasn't the full story. Because yes, his offense showed flashes before, but there were also struggles that led to his departure. Now he has a second chance, and a quarterback in Malik Willis who fits the mold of what he likes to do. We're expecting a heavy mix of play action, movement, and schemes designed to get Willis outside the pocket. Bootlegs, under center formations, shifting the launch point, all of that plays directly into Willis's strengths as an athlete. But here's the catch. This kind of offense requires timing, chemistry, and discipline. If one piece is off, the whole thing can fall apart. And that brings me to something Dolphins fans really need to think about. This team is not just learning new systems. They are learning how to trust each other again. New leadership, new schemes, new expectations. That's a lot of change in a short amount of time. The offseason program, especially these early phases, might not look intense from the outside. No hitting, no real competition yet. But internally, this is where jobs are quietly won, where leaders emerge, where coaches decide who they can rely on when the pressure hits later in the season. And don't forget, because the Dolphins have a new head coach, they also get extra opportunities to install concepts and work with players before the draft. That's a huge advantage if used correctly. More time to teach, more time to build chemistry, more time to establish identity. So when you look at everything, the pressure on Malik Willis, the responsibility on Bobby Slowik, the culture shift under Jeff Hafley, and the complete overhaul of schemes on both sides of the ball, this doesn't feel like a normal offseason. This feels like a turning point. Either this all comes together and surprises people across the league, or the growing pains hit hard, and the doubts surrounding this team only get louder. And this is exactly where things start to separate the teams that are just rebuilding from the ones that are quietly preparing to shock everyone. Because while a lot of people are focused on wins and losses months from now, what's happening inside the Dolphins facility today is about identity. And identity is what carries a team through adversity. Jeff Hafley made it very clear in his philosophy. He wants a team that plays harder, more physical, and more aggressive than anyone else on the field. That's not just talk. That's a standard. And standards create accountability. Now imagine this scenario for a second. You've got a locker room full of players who are hearing all the outside noise. This team won't compete. This is a reset year. They're not ready. And then you've got a head coach walking in and demanding intensity, discipline, and belief from day one. That clash between perception and expectation, that's where teams either break or bond. And I'll tell you what's going to be fascinating to watch, who steps up as leaders beyond the coaching staff. Because yes, Malik Willis is expected to lead, but leadership doesn't stop at the quarterback position. Veterans, returning players, even younger guys who understand the moment, they all have a role in shaping this culture. And in an offseason like this, those voices become even more important. Another thing that cannot be overlooked is how quickly players adapt to the complexity of these systems. On defense, we're talking about disguises, versatility, and constant adjustments. On offense, timing and execution will be everything with Slowik's scheme. There is very little room for hesitation. And here's the reality that might make some fans uncomfortable. This process could get messy before it gets better. There might be days in OTAs where things don't look sharp. There might be confusion, missed assignments, inconsistency. That's normal when you're installing new systems across the board. But what matters is progression. Are players improving week by week? Is the communication getting cleaner? Is the energy consistent? Because if those answers are yes, then this team might be building something much stronger than people expect. And let's not ignore one more critical factor, opportunity. This offseason program gives players chances they might not get during the regular